This is WWE Hall of Famer Tito Santana, and you are watching When It Was Real with noted wrestling historian, author, actor, and wrestling manager Nikita Breznikov, and pro wrestling author and podcaster Benny Scala, found only on the Player Entertainment Network. Arriba!
Beautiful.
Oh, Tito. Well, good evening, folks, and welcome back to another episode of When It Was Real. This show focuses on the glory days of the WWWF in the 1970s, that magical time when it was real. We could call this that 70s show of professional wrestling. Now, I am just a notch down, below Sylvano Souza on the food chain, but this other guy, he gets all the accolades and well-deserved, and I could only be talking about the one and only Nikita Breznikov. Nikita, how are you, my friend?
I'm great. Thank you, Benny. And when you mentioned Sousa, I just laugh. He was wild.
Well, you know, I mentioned him for a reason, because he's one of the subjects for this evening. So for the past 22 weeks, who have we've been talking about? Chief, Arion, Morales, Superstar, you name it, all the greats, Ernie Ladd, Captain Lou. But we're going to flip the script a little bit tonight. We're going to talk about those guys who very rarely, if ever, got their hand raised on a Saturday morning. You know, most people sometimes on social media, which really upsets me, they call them jobbers. I don't like that. That's disrespectful.
No.
You know, I call them enhancement talents. We're going to call them the underdogs of Saturday morning. And folks, if on Want Radio and can be found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, and several other audio platforms. Nikita, when it was real, we're becoming an international juggernaut.
There you go. When
that?
It was real.
Yeah.
Want. Thank you, Want, for having us. We're going to try our hardest not to disappoint you. Believe me.
We're going to put a couple of smiles on a couple of people's faces tonight, I guarantee you. But how about a toast to the underdogs of Saturday morning who gave it their all when it was real?
When it was real. Just love you. And a quick one, too. Boogie Woogie, man, his birthday today, 73.
83. Happy birthday to Jimmy Valiant, number 83. God bless you and Angel.
I gave him a gift. It shaved 10 years. Beautiful. What a wonderful
83
guy.
years young, still going at it.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a picture of each underdog. I'm going to read the stats for people in Rayland because they can't see the slides here, and then we'll chat a little bit about them. The folks in the chat room, please feel free to share your input. But here we go. The one and only
real quick. You leave them up. But listen, you guys out there, I say hello back to you because I never can see anything until 2 days later, whatever the comments. So I'm not ignoring anybody. And thank you, for all the good comments, but I can't see them right now. So Benny's in control.
I will relay any of the comments or any of the questions. Frankie Williams from Columbus, Ohio. Now, according to WrestlingData.com, which I use for all my research, 70 wins, 644 losses, and 39 draws through 1984. And he did get his highlight. He got a win over Alan Coish before he was Bad News Brown on February 23rd, 1979. So he did get that. It was a DQ. It wasn't a pin.
Well, now, here's a couple of items with Frankie Williams. Besides the famous Piper slap, which I guess most people would say that's his most famous moment ever on television. And it was pretty good.
His last moment on TV, too.
And there you go. And he got a slap. But when Swede Hansen was getting a push in 1979, boy, I wish we could have got to Swede before he was over the hill. But we got a good enough dose of him as it was. But they had Hansen put the pile driver, but they were really putting that over on Frankie Williams. Then a few weeks later, Vince does an interview with Frank Williams. He's got the neck collar on, And I mean, hey, how many of these guys that were behind the scenes, let's say, the enhancement, how many times did they get interviewed? They even brought him into the ring in Madison Square Garden on the September the 24th show to introduce him, and he's shaking hands with everybody. And it was like, because they were trying to put over Swede for the next show, October 22nd. It was like, oh, if Bruno wasn't wrestling Greg Valentine, that would have been a tough sell. So, yeah, Frankie, he got a couple of good pushes. He was a nice guy.
What do you think? Yeah.
I mean, hard worker. When he actually climbed back down Piper's throat about, hey, I lose more than I win, but I'm always in there. And it's like, yeah, Frankie does. He gives him 110%. I hate that shit. 100%.
Always there, yeah.
Only do 100. He did good.
Right.
Frank, you're good, man.
Now, what do you think they did that? Why would Vince interview Frankie Williams? What was the purpose of that? Because to me, everything they had, it was done for a purpose. What do you think they did that?
Because he still had the collar on, and they were trying to put Hansen over with the pile driver. That it was like this devastating. If anybody had a pile driver, it's going to cripple you most likely. But Swede Hansen being 300 pounds, yeah, if he was going to drive Backlund down into the mat, especially Freddie saying he was going to do it 2-3 times, they were going to make a vegetable out of Backlund. Freddie said he's already got the red hair. He looks like a carrot. Now the Swede's going to make him a carrot. And it was like, okay, very, very good. We're looking for that. But, yeah. Frankie got a day in the sun.
Reminding me, I really, it's hard to remember that Swede actually got a little bit of a push in the beginning.
In 79, he was tearing up everything because it was funny because Bruno came out to do an interview because another guy that Swede put the pile driver, he upsets the stretchers, they're going out, and Bruno comes out to interview, and Hansen says, I got no use for you, San Martino. I got no use for you. And Freddie's standing there going, and Bruno gives him a little shove, and it's like, Freddie lost it a little bit, and it was like, that's cool, but it never went anywhere. But Bruno wrestled him, but after the Garden with October 22nd, Hansen lost to everybody. Backlund and Dusty Rhodes, and then he ended up in a tag match with Victor Rivera against Ivan Putski and our good friend Tito Santana, and it was like, then that was it. But in 83, when he came back, he pretty much fits the bill of the discussion of tonight's show. He didn't get too much of a push, but that heel referee, that was brilliant. That was just spectacular. I love that. Then, of course, right after with Superstar and Backlund's lumberjack match, then Swede's a face. Then he's refereeing, and it's kind of wild because John Studd and Morocco say, yeah, we got Swede Hansen. He's one of us. And then Swede's like, I'm not for any of that. And it worked out really well. I was happy to see it. And Swede had like 12 kids. So he worked. I think he was in the 50s at some point, when he started. Him and Rip Hawk, they were just like Swede, they say, could punch through cinder block. He was a big bastard.
Raw bone, as Gorilla would call him. But when I think of Swede Hansen, I think of Bob Backlund lifting him up with one hand. That's still one of the most incredible feats of strength I've ever seen.
Well, we heard it last week from Davey O. Backlund, one of the strongest men ever in professional wrestling. He didn't look it on television, but when you saw him up close, then you saw the definition. Like, wow, I don't want him slapping any of those holds on me. Get the hell out of town, Matty. But Backlund, hallelujah.
All right, who do we got next here?
There's our boy.
Speaking of the Sylvano Sousa from East Providence, Rhode Island, 54 wins, 301 losses, 30 draws, 1974 to 1983. Most of it in the WWF. However, I didn't know this. He was the NWA Canadian Heavyweight Champion in 1982. I mean, it wasn't for very long, but I mean, the guy actually got a push in Canada.
In pro wrestling,
Hard to believe.
anything is possible. Yes. I tell you, he used to remind me of a bobblehead. You remember them for baseball? It would be like the Orioles and every team. Because when he'd take a shot, that head would be rocking back and forth.
Yeah. Oh, God. I can't think of the guy's name.
Well, it was July the 6th of 77. They were trying to get George Steele over big so the faces could get a good win to go after Superstar. And it was a handicap match. The first time George Steele ever had a TV handicap match. Sylvano Sousa and a guy named Hoss Tweed. I mean, man, it's hysterical. It was wild. And,
Hoss Tweed?
Hoss Tweed. And, Steele's doing all that. He's moving around. So then he locks up with Sousa. Tweed gets behind. No, it's the other way around. He locks up with Tweed. Sousa gets behind him. He kicks him between the legs, a back kick. Down goes Sousa out of the ring. Well, of course, there's Lou Albano. So it was basically a handicap tag match when you get down to it. So it was great. But Sousa with that head bouncing up and down. I met him the first time I ever had Chinese food was in Boston. Nikolai said, we're going to go to this place. We just worked night before and that afternoon for Walter Kowalski. And so he said, come on, we're going to go to Chinatown. I said, Nikolai, I don't like Chinese food. Said, oh, no, just this guy will be good. Don't worry, you'll love it. So, all right. So we go. And the guy, he get a yakking and Chinese. And I'm like, Nikolai, do you understand? Oh, I know what the fuck he said. I said, well, how do you know what we're going to get? He said, who gives a shit? It's free. Just take it. I said, okay, sounds good.
And
I loved it.
Right, you liked it.
I loved it. But the best part of it, then Sousa comes. No, he was already sitting there. I said, hey, Nikolai, look, there's Sousa. And he's like, hey, Nikolai, how you doing? He just got out of jail. And it's like, I don't know what the deal was, and I don't want to know, but it was like, wow, okay. Nikolai said, oh, my God, Sousa, you look like a big fat piece of shit. What's wrong with you? I said, Nikolai, take it easy on the guy, man. So it was funny. Anyway, we had the Sylvano Sousa.
I have heard that Mr. Sousa did run afoul of the law. So, and I don't know for what. I've heard a couple of things, and none of them are very good. But yeah,
look,
but I mean, for what did he? Almost 10 years, 10 years.
He never got over that. He never got the other leg over the fence to get beyond the undercard, the even like mid card. Just never happened. It was close. And I mean, he worked a lot up in that Boston area, definitely Providence. They were running all the time. So, and New Haven, the whole deal, he was all the way up there. And so that was like, okay, call Sousa. He'd be at Witchy's, the whole deal. But he just never had enough. I mean, he teamed up with a lot of the other, enhancement guys, and he was entertaining, but he was going to get murdered every time. Hey, you know what? He teamed up with John Arezzi. You know John Arezzi, the photographer.
Yeah, but he had a different name, though. I can't think of his
John
name.
Anthony.
Yeah, what did he? John Anthony. That's right. Yeah, I saw that match. Yeah,
right. It was a tag match with the Chiefs. Those two were together, him and Sousa, and then a handicap against Dusty Rhodes. So Sousa's head was definitely shaking after those elbows. Let me tell you.
But I saw him. I found a video of when he wrestled in Canada, in Western Canada. It was Vancouver, and he really. I mean, he wasn't great, but he was not that bad. I mean, he could carry a match. So I don't know. I guess maybe for the most part, like staying close to home and collecting that paycheck.
What we try to get through and stress to people that are listening in. It's not always the performer. You got to have the charisma, but a lot of the time it's who you're working with. And if you're working with somebody that's a little bit weak, you're going to have a shit match. There's nothing you can do about it. You might as well just squash the guy and go home. But you got to do what you got to. And if the promoter says, hey, Sousa, you got the Canadian heavyweight belt. I want you out there 20 minutes, 10, 15, whatever. It's like, you better be out there or they'll be taking the belt away.
Absolutely. Steve Gennarelli from the great, and I mean great, Stick to Wrestling podcast is making a comment. There's a YouTube video out there of Souza turning heel on Lou Albano at an indie show 20 years ago, and I have to watch that. I mean, the minute this show's over, I'm going to go watch that.
Thank you,
that's
Steve.
Definitely must see.
You ain't kidding.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that.
Steve's. Yeah. So I guess he had his moments. I guess, all these guys had their moments, maybe once or twice. Their 15 seconds of fame. But yeah, definitely a character. Definitely. I mean, he was. I mean, every Saturday morning, it seemed like he was there. I believe he worked well over 200 days a year, so he was gainfully employed. Had a nice run.
Absolutely.
What do we got next?
He was there. Now, this is an underrated
King,
guy here.
Panama City, Panama.
And that's the truth. He was from Panama City, no question. The poor thing about Steve King, he was a little bit short. He was a lot like Johnny Rivera. He had that Spitfire. He could get a lot done, but he was just too damn short. And it's like, man, we got to bring somebody in here who's got some size. But Steve King, he was in there. He usually just didn't get squashed. He would give, like, even Valentine, people like that, Morocco, he'd give them somewhat of a match. They'd get a receipt for what being in there with him. But yeah, Steve King, God bless him, he was definitely pound for pound. He could go with anybody. And we would see him in there with all the top heel names because he was always a face. He was definitely beloved by the fans.
Yeah,
and it was like,
that's a good analogy. Maybe a Spanish version of Rick McGraw.
Good. Yeah, a lot like Rick McGraw. He, again, didn't quite get the other leg over the fence to where McGraw did, even though, he didn't stay on that side of the fence for long. And it was like too small. That was the problem with McGraw. Way too small. He was like as wide as he was tall, but you just don't have the height to draw this in here. It's
McGraw
like Piper
definitely spent some time in the gym. But now,
Piper, when he first took his shot, the old man said he was too skinny. It's like, you got good height and everything else. Go put on some weight and then come on back because you're a natural. But yet he was already, unbeknownst to us, in LA with Java Rook. They were setting the place on fire. So I don't know. The old man had some weird ways. A lot of people think he was this and that, and maybe so, but seems to me like sometimes he got in his own way.
Now this guy, Nikita, I mean, according to wrestling data, his entire career, which is only 7 years, was spent in the WWF. You would think a guy like this, smaller guy, but, well built, could work. Why he didn't go down to one of the territories maybe and, that had featured junior heavyweights, like maybe Mid-Atlantic.
Now let's refer back. And as I said on my advertisement, we actually had this show scheduled 2 weeks ago, and then we brought Johnny Rods in, and hey, we were more than happy to defer to him. It was a wonderful show.
That was a nice surprise. Yes, sir.
Yes. And it was like we learned a lot. Like Johnny said, I did the Java Rook, and I could have kept going. There was a little bit of money problem, but which is always par for the course. But the deal was I am here and in this area. I can travel. I can go to Baltimore and go up to Boston. New York is right around the corner, Pennsylvania. So Steve King, I think, was the same situation, lived locally, and then were able to just say, hey, I'll jump in the car. You put some miles on the vehicle. Nobody was flying back then. Believe me, people, it wasn't. And it was cheap. I mean, when I talk about the first time that I went to work for Kowalski, the damn ticket from Baltimore to Boston was like $70. It's like, what the hell? Of course I'm going to go. That was great. So yeah, Steve King, he had that nucleus, he was right there. He's there for television. You got the old Philadelphia arena before they moved to Allentown and then Hamburg. It's like boom, boom. That's guaranteed. They need you every taping, without a doubt. Somebody's got to crush you or beat you. And the house shows, it's like, yeah, you're going to be one of the 3 or 4 warm-up matches. And it used to piss me off, no disrespect, but those fucking matches would usually go 15 minutes, and then a top match like Chief against Valentine would come on at 10 of 11, and it's like then the curfew. By the time they get the yickety yakking who they are, which we already knew that, we had like 6 or 7 minutes, and I was like, holy shit.
Right.
I'm done.
Right. Yeah.
Fred Marzino.
Now this. All right. So this guy wrestled for, it looks like 5 years, 6 years. No, 7 years. I'm sorry. 9 wins, 309 losses. And now this guy, of all the, I looked for a good hour. I could not find anybody statistically worse than Fred Marzino. I don't know anything about the guy. You know, again, he was, you know, smaller guy. He wasn't, you know, pretty decent physique, but just
he almost got a win over the Paramount Samoan chief Peter Maivia. It was the first TV taping after Maivia had did the turn on Backlund on television, and then Strongbow in Madison Square Garden and every other arena across the East Coast. So he comes out to wrestle Marzino, and Blassie's in there, and they're doing the shtick without a doubt. And the referee was Dick Worley was getting pissed off, and he went over to Marzino, and he's got his wrist. He's ready to raise his hand, and Maivia's throwing out his chest, and Blassie's pointing a finger and screaming and hollering, and even Vince's and Bruno was doing the color at that point. Bruno had just joined not long ago, and they were like, yeah, you know, referee's about ready to ring the bell and give the match to Marzino. And it's like, but then, of course, Maivia destroyed him in a heel fashion. It was great, and we were loving it. It was just, that's what you needed. But you got to give Fred Marzino and the whole group, you got to give them credit. Like I talk about Larry Zbyszko.
right.
To do the Bruno angle, you had to eat a bag of crow, because you're not going to outmuscle Bruno. You're not going to get over on him. You have to let Bruno murder you. You hit him in the balls. You run away with Bruno. You knock him out of the ring, and then you stomp on him as he gets back. But that's it. Hit him with a chair and run like a scared woman or something like that. But you ain't going to do anything to get over on Bruno. You have to accept that. And Larry did it to perfection. I give him credit for that. It's not easy.
Good point.
Yeah. That's what these guys, and not to say that Larry was in this category, but it was like, if you're going up against Bruno, if it's a shoot, he's going to break you in 6 pieces. So here's how we're going to play it. And that's that. Freddie Marzino.
I have to say,
what's that, Chip Benny?
Most of these guys got their wins over each other. That's the funny part. Like I'm thinking, well, who the hell did he win against? And now there's another guy, Mario Mancini, whose record is very close to Marzino's, but he was
at the Capitol Center or Baltimore Civic Center, places like that. Yeah. You know, it's like, okay. And I really believe, like, if Monsoon was doing the booking, or, you know, Phil Zacco would be promoting, but let Monsoon run the show. It's like, okay, go ahead. You two go out there tonight, put his hand up, and you got a bone. And why not? Everybody that's in the business knows what the hell you're going through. And these guys were not getting rich. I don't know that anybody really was, except a few maybe, but it was like, you got to pay the trans, the gas, like we heard from Davey O and Johnny Rods. You got tolls. You got to eat. And you got to have a place to sleep. So that means a hotel. Sometimes you'll heal a room and get 3 or 4 of you in there. You get the bed, you get the mattress. I'll take the box spring. You get the couch, and you use the sofa cushions to sleep on the floor. It's like, it's rough. You get your paydays, but you got to take those expenses out, and they're there, man.
Right.
You hope to have something to send home, but I don't know.
it's so different now because you don't have a guy like a Fred Marzino or a Frankie Williams or a Souza. Everybody is a quote unquote superstar, but back then when they had the Witchies or one of the smaller arenas like an Island Gardens or was it the Jaffa Mosque? Is that those kind of arenas? A guy like this maybe is going to win the opening match against another prelim guy, and I mean and those were good matches. You liked watching those.
We love that. It would never work today. It just, those people have been reprogrammed. So there's no way they would tolerate it. They would probably riot. But when it was real, that we loved that. I've said it 1,000 times. I went to see everybody from Fred Marzino all the way to Bob Backlund, the Chief, Bruno, everybody, because and of course, it had like an orchestra leader. You started out, okay, Fred Marzino, say you're wrestling Steve King tonight. Okay, go out there, give us 12 minutes. Don't do anything crazy. Keep it in the ring. Let's not take away from the top matches tonight, especially the main event. And then it builds to this, that, and then the semi-main event or a tag match. And then the main event, kaboom, you got the big explosion. So, yeah, it's I miss it. I wish I could see Fred Marzino against Steve King.
Right. I mean, even watching I used to watch the Garden shows back in the late 70s. They started showing them from HBO started showing in New York the Garden shows, and I don't ever remember watching like Rods and SD Jones and thinking like, oh crap, man, I got to watch this again. I never ever from a nanosecond thought that. I mean, and I never thought, well, I can't wait till the main event. I hope this gets over quick. I enjoyed every second of every match.
Well, you brought it up, so let's say it. Baron Scuna. Now, instead of graduating, he really wasn't demoted, but it was like he lost his main event status. In 1976, that was his last mid-card run, where the Baron was definitely a force to be reckoned with. Then in the 77, he's filling this spot with people on television matches at the arena. Because in Baltimore, I mean, if it was Baron Scuna and SD Jones, I was in my glory. I love that because Baron, he would aggravate this one guy. His name was Bud. I don't know Bud's last name, but Bud would get there, I swear to God, at noon, the day of the show for that night, because when the tickets would go on sale for the next month at 6 p.m., he would be the first guy in line. And he was a nice guy. If you just gave him the money and said, here, Bud, try to get me the best you can, he would do it. I mean, it would be good if you went there and kept him company, but he was good enough to just do that. But Scuna would see him. Bud wore very thick glasses, and Scuna would point to him. He'd look for him, and he'd do like with the glasses, and Bud would almost burst blood vessels. He'd be screaming and hollering. And by the way, if anybody has any of the old Capitol Center matches that were on the USA Network, Bud was the guy with the program and the glasses, and he'd be screaming. And they centered on him a few times with the camera because he was a character. So, yeah, I mean, but the Baron, he carried himself in a way that he still had that, because Bruno reminded everybody it was a TV, it was December the 12th. Oh my God, it was Fred Marzino, I believe, that Scuna defeated. And it was like 2 minutes, boom, boom. And Baron did like this. He rolled his eyes. It's like, what the fuck? But it was nice that they gave him a little bit of a push. And Bruno said, hey, I remember Baron Scuna from the 60s. He said, Vince, I was made events with him in Madison Square Garden all over the East Coast. And he was tough. This guy. And he said, he almost looks lean, but he's thickly muscled, but he never put on weight, to the point where 275, you're looking beefy, mostly when guys carry that kind of weight. But the Baron, like Dominic DeNucci, but Baron was a little bit heavier, but he was slim and trim. But look at that. Scuna was able to go on till 83. He was happy. do the opener, whatever, put whoever over.
Yeah.
He was fine with it. It was a payday. Again, you were right in that little circle, close to home. You know, wherever you needed to go, we can drive there. Sometimes, like Davey O said last week, if you were going to go up to Mass or any place like that, it's like, oh, son of a bitch. But okay, it's the job, no problem.
Yeah, yeah. Let me see. Who do we got next here?
Oh my God,
The Duke of
there he is.
Dorchester. Doherty.
The chief gave him that name. And the reason it happened was when Chief was a road agent, they were getting ready to get the show going, and Doherty was late. So then he comes walking in, and Chief said, "Okay, now we could start. Here's the Duke of Dorchester," and that stuck, and it fit. Now, okay, Pete Doherty, especially around 77, because he was wrestling tag matches with Johnny Rods and a bunch of other people against Tony and Larry. He was in a singles match with Maivia, and he charged Maivia. Maivia did that. Man, I don't know how he does it. That great shoulder roll, rolls aside, and Doherty goes out of the ring. I mean, he ricocheted off the damn post into the floor. But he gets the push as the Golden Terror. Remember that one, right, Benny? In 1977.
Yes.
And I mean, we used to call him the Banana because it was just like a yellow outfit. They painted the trunks and he put on that mask. Well, it was funny because it was a 6-man. He teamed up with Larry Sharp and Jack Evans. It was the Chiefs and Dominic, and they got a hold of that mask and they were turning it around and ripping it. Like Vince said, it's like you grab one of those bulls by a ring and his nose and it leading I almost said it a couple times, leading the Golden Terror around the ring. And it was like, he was a funny guy because he would make when you would hit him, he would make these squealing noises and flail around the ring. Kind of like, do you have anything of Moose Monroe? I forgot. I looked at your photos, but did you have the Moose in there?
No, do not. No.
Okay. Now the Moose.
Yeah, definitely another one, right?
Right. I mean, here's a big guy, because Bruno even said it. You know, he said, Vince, here's a guy. This is a good example. Here's somebody 300 pounds. He don't know how to throw a punch. He's flat-footed. He's uncoordinated. Even though he has the weight, he don't know what to do with it. And then when you'd grab Moose in an arm lock, he'd be, whoa! And, you know, and the whole crowd would be, whoa! He was funny. But Sheik worked the match with him when he was Great Hussein. And Sheik is like the Freddy, like, what the fuck I can do with this guy? What the fuck? Nothing. Because Moose, you couldn't maneuver him around too well. So Sheik put him on the middle rope and ran across the ring, and he did that ass dive onto his back, and then he would get caught with the rope on the throat. But the Sheik gave him a hell of a chair shot. He was pissed because he was disgusted with this. He took that fucking chair and splintered it across Moose's back because Sheik was like, I can't do nothing with this fucking guy, and he was pissed off about it. But normally, people knew that you're going to get in there with Moose, just work around. Like Chief used to say, just stand in the middle, I'll work around you. It's nice and easy. 1, 2, 3. But the Duke of Dorchester, he was a good man. He was a good hand. He was in that upper area, that Massachusetts. He owned most of the cards. The Golden Terror, you know, he actually got a pretty decent push. He and Mascaris had a mask versus mask match in the Garden. And, of course, Doherty lost. And he didn't want to unmask, but Mascaris grabbed him and took it off. And there was a picture, and I think John Arezzi got the shot, of Doherty on the steps of Madison Square Garden trying to run, and he had the mask in his hand, and you could see it's Pete Doherty, without a doubt. So they said, oh, finally the Golden Terror has been unmasked. But then the next day, when they did the TV taping, it was Doherty, Moose Monroe, and I think Tank Patton. Yeah, it was Tank Patton, believe it or not, if you remember that name. And it was against Calhoun, Mascaris, and Larry Zbyszko. And nothing was said that, he was unmasked the night before, but we lived in the black hole of wrestling. What you didn't know wouldn't hurt you. And they gave us a lot of you didn't knows. And it was fine.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, ignorance truly was bliss, right? I mean,
I loved it, but even when I got in the know in 1978.
Yeah. Jason Moaning in the chat is saying, I remember the Duke as a commentary guy with Bruce Pritchard and Mike McGraw during the mid-'80s. I do remember that. The guy was very entertaining.
He was a goof. He was funny. He didn't have any teeth, basically. He was
quite the character.
A character. Yes, he was a character. He's one of them that could read the phone book and keep you in stitches for hours.
Like a poor man's Johnny Valiant.
Very good. I like that, Benny. Yes.
Yeah, that's what he was very good sense of humor, very entertaining. And I mean, I always loved watching the guy. So, and he had a longer career. He wrestled for almost 20 years. And I think in a lot of cases, their careers were longer because I don't think WrestlingData.com really captured the indies. Just really captured the territory action. So I think in a lot of these cases, maybe these guys did go on and wrestle more, just that we don't really know about it.
No, because I'll tell you what, I think it is. Like a guy like Pete Doherty, if they stayed up in that upper region, they didn't work as much. That's a hell of a haul to come from, let's say, Boston to go to Baltimore, which it was done. And if you were at Witchy's in North Attleboro, and a lot of times the next day you were at the Spectrum, the Capitol Center, or Baltimore, I mean, son of a bitch, it's 8 to 9 hours. And you got to sleep at, if you're on last, son of a bitch, that means you're getting done at 11. You got to find a hotel unless you've already made a reservation. In those days, it was easier, I must admit. And the rooms were somewhat cheaper. And it's like, as long as there's no bugs or dead bodies, fuck it, it's a nice place to sleep. And you were fine. But still, nobody wanted to hear that you were late or that your cat died or your mother-in-law sick or any bullshit. You're supposed to fucking be there when you're supposed to be there. They don't want to hear excuses. So you got to do the hustle, man. That was it.
Right. Absolutely. Who do we have next?
Now,
I don't remember this. I don't remember this guy. I know he wrestled somewhere else, but I very vaguely remember this guy.
77 and 78, he was on WWWF TV a lot and in the house shows because Patera grabbed him a couple of times. And I mean, he was a good sized guy. He was about almost 300 pounds. A little flabby.
Yeah, he was they built him at like 290.
Yeah, little flabby, but he was okay. He was convincing, but he was face fodder basically. And no, sometimes heel too. It depended whatever they needed him for. Nobody really, the fans, we didn't take a liking one way or the other. It didn't matter. It was good to see him. We appreciated it. He would be a good filler for a battle royal, things like that. Or hey, a lot of times they'd bring in a couple extra guys just in case somebody didn't make it. Cars break down. They're not happy about it, but it happens. And instead of shorting people, the fans, then it's okay. You're on. You brought your bag. Get out there. You're on third, whatever. So, yeah, Pete Austin was a decent guy. And again, there's that Boston, Massachusetts again. And guess what? I would
a lot of these guys are from the New England area.
I would wager to guess that Walter trained them. Just about anybody that comes from that region, Killer Kowalski, you pass through his portal without a doubt.
I mean, if you're that close to Killer Kowalski, why wouldn't you want him to train you? I know I sure would.
I'm going to save this because I know a secret that I'm not going to reveal yet for next week. But you remember Tom Snyder used to do the Tomorrow Show after Johnny Carson went off with Tonight.
Yes, absolutely. Of course. Yep. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Very
because
late at
they would
night.
have today, so he would do the tomorrow show. He did a feature on Killer Kowalski in his school. So it was like that was pretty damn neat. I have a tape of it. It was very well done. It's a shitty copy, but I mean you could see and hear what's going on. And I mean, my God, I'd say Walter retired in 77 after the executioner run. And he stayed active here and there, but for the most part, he was done. But then he was very active with the school, and he spent a lot of time in the ring with the students. He was like a father. He wouldn't just take your money and say, "Okay, throw a couple of wrist locks and a headlock and just teach you this bullshit." I mean, he drilled down with people. He was good.
No, in fact, my two podmates on True Crime, Brittany Brown and Dangerous Dave Starr, both trained under Walter, and they have nothing but praise and respect for the guy. And they said that he didn't just teach you wrestling; he taught, he gave you life lessons. And I mean, they give him a lot of credit for shaping their not only their careers but their lives.
He was a good philosopher. And he was no bullshit. He would tell you, and he made sense. One of the best things I ever took away from him, he said, from the minute you leave your front door till you come home and lock it, somebody's trying to work you. Everybody, somebody, they're trying to work you. And it's like, Walter, fucking A, it's the truth. I mean, how much shit is shoveled at us in the course of a day? Everybody going to make you a millionaire. The doctors, well, you got this, you need that. And it's like, just relax, back the fuck off already. Just take it easy. Police are out there giving tickets. And I did it for a lot of years, people. I wasn't a big ticket man, but it's like, they have quotas. Don't let anybody bullshit you. Traffic people have quotas. Today, they don't have time for that shit. They can't even keep.
I work for county government. The sheriff's department budgeted ticket revenue. Absolutely, 100%. That was a big line item in their budget. So yeah, they had to get that ticket money. Nikita, another question from the chat room from Jason, and another Boston guy. Did Kevin Sullivan get started as an enhancement talent in WWF? I think he was a little bit more than an enhancement talent, though. He was a little bit above these guys, right? He got some wins.
He was like an SD Jones and a Rick McGraw. He was, again, too short for the East Coast. That's why he went to Florida, and they were able to do something with him. And that's not my analysis that he was too short. That was the old man. That was he was the mastermind. Yeah, you had Skolin, Gilzenberg, and Phil Zacco. They were all, but what Vince Sr. said basically would stick. And Kevin Sullivan was just too short for their liking. So they would throw him a bone here and there. But mostly, yeah, because I don't know if people remember this before Billy White Wolf. And Johnny Rivera got a dose of it, but Kevin Sullivan, that was his exodus to say that Patera broke his neck and he wasn't able to wrestle anymore. That was his exit from the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. So he served the purpose. Look what he did in Florida. Well, that's what I'm saying. They didn't really care. They didn't make a big deal about how tall he was or any of that bullshit. They saw him for what he was. And that's why when we get into the superstar Billy Graham, Bob Backlund debate, and it's like, okay, in those days, there was no way in hell that they were going to take Graham as a heel and make him a champion as a face. I don't care if Ivan Koloff turned on him. I don't care who turned on him. That's the man that stole the belt from Bruno, the most beloved champion in the history of the business. So
right
in their minds, that was never going to be forgotten. So it wasn't going to happen. Superstars, we said, was a cool villain. He was one of the neatest villains we'd ever encountered. But that mindset, it was narrow. Believe me, it was like driving on a country road with one headlight. That was it, man. They were focused, and you weren't going to change their mind no matter what.
No. And you know what Sullivan did in Florida, they never would have ran an angle like that in New York. I couldn't see Vince Sr. running an angle like that. Oh, it's a
Well,
crap.
look at Bugsy
just couldn't
McGraw.
see it.
Bugsy McGraw had the size, but they didn't know what the hell to do with him. That bullshit they called sick power, and it was like, man, we've had George Steele and Moondog Maine and people like that. Sick power, it was pretty stupid. It didn't really make sense. And they almost
Right.
lost their ass on that Garden show. If it wouldn't have been for throwing Lou Albano in there against Bruno, they probably would have collapsed because there wasn't much of a supporting card. So it was like, there's another example. Bugsy McGraw, they didn't know what to do with him. And he was not enhancement, people, no, by any stretch. He was top of the line.
No, not at all.
But he just never got over with the way they pushed him in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation.
But then he went down to Florida and like he started riots down there. And he pretty much everywhere else he went, he was a main eventer. He won a number of titles all over the country.
Yes.
Just couldn't
I like
in New York.
when he had that big top hat and the cigar, and Nikolai worked with him a lot in Florida and places like that. It was like
very
he
smart
loved
man.
the guy.
Yeah.
Very intelligent and strong as could be. And he could go. He was over like 300, maybe 20 to 30 pounds, but he had stamina, which was a rare combination.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Chuck Richards.
Do you remember this guy? This might be, Popeye.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Somehow he actually got 36 wins somehow. 36 wins, 271 losses. 1960s. I would have guessed that he wrestled longer than that. Career of 66 through 74. But
go ahead. Yeah, he's the reason.
No, I was going to say he's also grandfather of Chris Candido.
Yes, Chris Candido's grandfather. He's the reason that I was able to meet the Chief. When he died, the Chief called the widow, and then Nikolai called, and the widow said, I just talked to Chief. So Nikolai said, I have no talk to Chief. I need his number. I didn't. He got a new number. I don't have it. So he gave him the number, and then those two talked, and that's when I was able to get in with the Chief. And it was funny because he said, I had the same number for 40 years. He lost it. I said, oh, Chief, believe me, I know. You ain't telling me anything I don't know, but okay. So, yeah, Chuck Richards, he was early 70s. He got out there. He could give it to you. And they call him Popeye because he had that look like a Popeye. And, he was a tough guy. Carteret, New Jersey. I love Carteret. That was a nice little spot. And you saw his offspring, right? Chris Candido.
He was,
Chris Candido.
He was one of the guys when I first started watching in 1968. He was one of the guys. He
probably had the same trouble like Chris Candido did. Again with the height, it wasn't that big, and so it's like, okay, throw him out there. He's a tough guy. He can take care of himself. Throw him out there and let's see what he can do. Put him on television and let him blow through him, and that's just the way it happened. No offense, people, none intended to anybody. We're just reporting the way it was at the time. Nobody asked us. Chuck Richards.
Yeah. Who do we got? I think if Tom Jones is still here.
Now, Lee Wong.
Lee Wong from was he from Hong Kong or was he from Ecuador?
I knew him from Hong Kong. He was
built from both places.
He went all the way to 1981 on television. And he looked like maybe he weighed 190 pounds soaking wet in 1981. But in the prior years, and he was one of the first, Blackjack Lanza. It was like the first HBO match, June 30th of 73, the first card that they televised. He went up against Lanza. And Lanza basically, choking him with the microphone at Vince's table, picked up Vince's microphone, wrapped a cord around him, and put the claw on, and it's like, yeah, Lee Wong, he'd been around a long, long time. And, you know, he didn't have any offense. I guess the idea was just go out there and be murdered.
Not bad.
What the hell? Yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about. Do you want to be here? Yes. Do you want to make the money? Yes. Then shut the hell up and do what I tell you and go out there. And like a lot of times, you know, Nikolai said, what, because they got like $25, the big guys for the big names for the the TV matches, because it's like you're getting a free advertisement and you're going to make yours when you go to the house shows. So they would take up a collection and they would give some extra money to these guys, because it's like, yeah, basically we're beating the shit out of them and they're putting us over, so that when we go to Madison Square Garden or Baltimore or the Capitol Center and we go to each other and we lock up, we're all going to make a lot of money. So they appreciated it and took care of these guys.
They were all I didn't know that. I mean, that's that. And I mean,
yeah, they had a catered affair. I mean, you know, not like big meals, but, you know, cold cuts or whatever. And then you'd eat all day long while Vince is doing the yickety yak with doing all those thousands of promos for all the arenas. And then you get all that shit done. And they would usually start about 7 and 3 hours, a good dark match to keep the crowd happy. It had to be, I mean, to me, I'm jealous that I never got to experience a TV taping, because you never know what the hell's going to happen, but you're going to see it first, right? And usually it's 3 weeks behind, because, as I've always said, television, championship wrestling at least, because Hamburg, the All-Star Wrestling, I don't even know what the hell the difference was, why they had a B show, but the championship wrestling was the infomercial, and everything was strategically set by hour for the upcoming Madison Square Garden, either that Monday night, or if they were going to announce the next show, then something big happened on television to draw you when that announcement was made. So it's like, that was, the continuity beats Hollywood to death all the way around, because when Ken Patera was managed by Albano, then he returned in 1980. He went with the Wizard, and Bobby Duncombe the reverse, from the Wizard to Lou Albano. But they mentioned it. They talked about it in interviews. And to us as fans, that meant a lot. It was like, hey, that's cool. It gives it, just like when they would announce at the TV matches or the arenas, whatever state athletic commission, whatever city you were in, it's like, that means a lot. I mean, it's like, wow, this is serious shit. And let me tell you something. I have manager licenses.
You felt included.
Bullshit. Yeah, I have. These are mine that I had to obtain. Even second licenses. Even if I wasn't going to manage, just to be at the ringside, you had to have a license to be a second. Just like in boxing. Their managers don't come to the ring with them. It's a second that's out there. But in wrestling, they do the manager thing. And in New York, oh my God, they drove me crazy one night. The guy kept bugging me. He said, you know, managers do not touch. I said, we're not planning it. No problem. And he bugged me like 5 more times, like, pal, listen. Because he threatened me with, he said, if we have to, you know, we'll give you a fine and or an arrest. I pulled my badge out. I said, look, goof, I'm Baltimore City Police, okay? I'm not going to cause any shit. We're here to do what we're going to do. I'm not going to do anything to anybody else. We'll keep it in the ring. Everything will be fine. Are you happy now? And he's like, yeah, okay, I didn't know. It's like, well, okay, so why you got to act like an ass? No problem. We're not going to pick up a chair. Because now, Baltimore, and, you know, here's our little tribute to Hulk Hogan. And I got nothing bad to say. The Hulk Hogan of 1980 and 81 with Andre the Giant, completely different, bona fide wrestler. He got it all done. And God bless him with the Hulkamania, it was different. Pages were turning. Our guys were getting older. Fine. You took that and you ran with it. God bless you. I mean, you did good. I'm happy for you. But I was at a Raw taping, and he walked in. This was when he was doing his bit with Vince. Nice guy, but the state athletic commission's right on him, the doctor. He said, "Let me get your blood pressure." And Hawk was like, "I don't even know if I'm working tonight. I haven't seen Vince. So, let's hold off because they may just do an interview with me. So we don't need to go through all of this." "Well, let me get the blood pressure." That way the doctor could do whatever. I guess go get something to eat or disappear. But it's like they were always getting that money and they were in your face. Now, if it was an independent show, the same Maryland State Athletic Commission would be, and no chairs, nothing outside the ring, no blood. And it's like, well, how the hell does Vince get away with this shit? Well, guess. I wasn't ever there to see it happen, but what do you think was done? I mean, let's be real about it. Like politicians, how come they're all rich and we're not? They're supposed to work for us, but they're the kings and the queens. But I'm not going to get political. So anyway, yeah,
Right.
Lee Wong, God bless you, because you gave up the body probably as much, or maybe at times more so than the bigger names, because the bigger names tried not to kill each other because they knew, we got to work the next 4 or 5 nights in a row in other cities. Or these guys, it's like, who gives a fuck? We're just going to, thanks for helping us to get over, but they're going to clobber them. Sometimes
it's like the movie Rudy when they're trying the guys out for the practice team in Rudy, the movie Rudy, and the coach says, "Our job is to basically beat the shit out of you, and we don't really care, whether you get hurt or not. Your job is to make to help the main team prepare for their next opponent. You're basically disposable." And it sounds pretty similar.
You just described enhancement talent. That's it. That's right.
Right.
And
right.
It's funny. Now, I know we're close to an hour, and I'm good. I don't have to run away. I have a list of, do you have any more with your PowerPoint?
Well, yes, I do. And this is for,
go ahead.
Let me.
Go ahead.
There we go for Tom Jones.
Oh my God.
Tom Jones, this is for you. Joe Turco, the Continental Nobleman from Catania.
Slap me hard, because how could we not mention our buddy, our loved Joe Turco? And here's a guy, and please, for those of you that missed Davey O'Hannon last week, please go back and check it out. It's archived on YouTube. We appreciate the support, and it was a grand interview. We hold it dear to our hearts. But Davey mentioned Joe, and he said, he felt bad because towards, I think 78 was about it. Around February of 78 was the last time I remember seeing Joe Turco on television or at an arena. And the situation, like that Davey explained, was, Joe was pretty down because he's like, man, I can't feed my kids. I'm not doing enough with making these paydays that I'm getting in wrestling. And it's like, my God, it's tough. But he was in so many territories. And I did ask Davey, but he wasn't sure. But remember, Joe wore the red tights and he had the pitchfork on the end. He did look like a devil with that mustache and the beard.
Yes.
So I don't know if he ever pulled that somewhere. That would be funny.
Yeah, look at that mug. Yeah.
Yeah, he could be like a devil character or a musketeer or something like that. But he was another vocal punisher. When he got punished, he'd be like, and everybody would get a big kick. Oh, good, Joe Turco. He most of the time he kicked the show off because he knew what the hell to do. He knew his place. Don't overshadow the main matches. Go get the crowd warmed up because they're antsy. Because if you ever heard the song "The Blue Cyclone" by Ray Stevens, have you ever heard it?
No.
Okay. Go, it's all over the internet. The Blue Cyclone. It's about a guy, his wife goes out of town and his buddy takes him to, he'd never been, he takes him to the wrestling matches, and it's like, man, I'd never seen anything like this, not even in the war. But the best line was, they lowered the lights and the crowd began to scream. And my God, that was right on the money. As soon as they would turn out, you'd see the state athletic commissioners walking to the table. And then when the house lights went out and there was the ring lights, everybody erupted. They knew we're ready to start the night's festivities, and it was great. And Joe Turco, if you saw him coming out, it's like, yeehaw. I mean, okay, we're off to the races. Joe Turco's in the opener. We're happy. We love to see that. And no matter what.
If I, turn on the TV and it's Joe McHugh introducing Joe Turco, all is right in my world. Life is perfect at that precise moment in time.
And I do it again. Larry had a match with him in 1977. He beat him with the bear hug, and he didn't dump him. He gave him the accordion, laid him down onto the mat, and then he let him roll off. That was good. Nice show of respect. I thought that was perfect. That was good.
Yes.
At that point, Nikolai said Joe was worried, man, please don't cripple me. I got a lot of years in the business, so please, I don't want to go into the wheelchair. I probably am destined for it, but I don't want to go jumping into it. So that was a nice move by Larry.
Yeah. Yeah, he was, just never failed to entertain. I did have a question or a comment from Steve Gianarelli. I want to, before I forget, he, let me find it here. Something about Bruno and Hogan wrestling in Baltimore in 1987.
I heard about it.
Does that sound familiar?
Well, that's supposed to be Bruno's absolute final match, even though if you talk to Sal Corrente, and if you were fortunate enough to speak to Bruno, as I was over the years, he said none of that bullshit. Actually, in my mind, I watched it out. It didn't happen. Bruno's last match was October the 6th, or the October the 4th, 1981, when he wrestled George Steele at the Meadowlands. That was his official retirement.
At the Meadowlands, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. After that, exactly. All that other
he went
bullshit.
To Japan after that, right?
Yeah, he tried to do what, I'm not going to get into all the other business, but it's like, that was it. The comeback, it was kind of neat when he got in the ring at the Garden with Piper for the Piper's Pit. But like he said, that wasn't me. That wasn't the Bruno Sammartino that when you saw me, men would shake and want to start running away. It's like, you knew he was still tough. You knew he was in good shape, but he was starting to get older. And Bruno didn't want to be there.
Pushing 50, or he was 50. Yeah.
Yeah. And your body's just not going to let you do but so much. So, like he's in his first book.
Bruno.
In his first book, he really criticizes the McMahons. And because he said, look, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm done. And like he said, for the longest time, he's trying to get a hold of Vince, and he's getting Pat Patterson. And it's like, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to Vince. I mean, what the fuck, man? Not that Bruno would say that, but it's like, what the fuck? After all I've done, broken neck, the whole thing, coming back, save the company, I can't get a phone call.
Do you know who I am? Do you remember me? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, come on already here. Jeez, let's be civil about this. And it's like, I'm done. I was done. I don't even want a fork. I've been done so long. That's enough, please. But I got a list. And
yeah, this even Bruno, he said in the book. Oh, yeah, please.
No, finished, man. He finished.
No, go ahead. I'm
okay. Here's the.
I know listen, Bruno said in the book that he didn't even.
Did he what, Benny? You cut off. Uh-oh, you're not frozen, are you?
Oh, no, he didn't even acknowledge that part of his career, that 84 through 87.
Yeah, no, that
wasn't even, he wanted to forget about that.
Nah. Okay, now please understand, for our wonderful audience, this is not all inclusive. Put a list together. I'm going to run down some names. We'll just, hit and miss. Kind of like whatever the show was where you throw out a name and you say the first thing that's on your mind. But here are some honorable mentions.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Manuel Soto and Pete Sanchez. Now, they did get a bump in 75. And Soto, he's another one, a little bit shorter, but never got the other leg over the fence to go up the ladder. But he had it. He had the fan support. But I loved the team of Soto and Sanchez. I really did.
Yes.
Now, Pete Sanchez,
both great workers.
He retired for a while. He was doing, I think, a restaurant with his dad. And then when he came back around 82, 83, he picked up some matches and, he still looked good and he could get it done. But John L. Sullivan, anybody remember that name?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Now, for the fans that are out there, that's our buddy, luscious Johnny Valiant. And was that a boxer too, Benny? John L. Sullivan? I think that's why he took the name.
Oh, yeah. Back in the early 1900s. Yes, sir.
Now, really, that kind of encompasses what my next
pre-Dempsey.
My next batch is Sergeant Frank Holtz, Jim Grabmeyer, and Johnny DeFazio. These are Pittsburgh people that basically you didn't see them on television, but at the Pittsburgh Civic Arena, the Igloo, they would be there just about monthly. And they would be in there with, and I believe DeFazio was like one of the final contestants in a battle royal with names like Steele, Patera, and Strongbow. And it's like, these guys, we didn't know a lot about them in Baltimore, I guess even New York, but people in Pittsburgh knew them as heroes. They'd be there on a monthly basis. Here are a couple more names. Dynamite Jack Evans. Now, I was just told, because somebody asked, is he still alive?
Yeah. I mean, and they were on that studio wrestling show.
Yep. Now, Davey just said he is. I believe he may be in Tennessee, if I remember correctly, where Davey said he is. But they gave Dynamite Jack Evans a little push back in 77, going into 78 with Larry Sharp. They had the matching jumpsuits. Both Jack had dark hair, but he dyed it blonde with Larry Sharp, or with Larry Sharp. And there's another name, Larry Sharp. He was pretty much enhancement.
Stars on him.
Yeah, he got a little boost in 77 and 78, and even in 1980. They were putting him over against the other names, and Larry would say, watch this, and then he'd give the pile driver, boom, and he'd get a win. But not against anybody of any kind of substance, unfortunately. Mike Conrad, he was a TV name in a house show. Miguel Feliciano, and Miguel Feliciano would go on to the 80s. It's wild. Vincetti Bull Pimetti, remember him? He, it was kind of a little bit like here and there.
Yes.
Gene Dubois, the Bear Man, Dave McGinty, and thank God for him, because Bobby Heenan gave Dave McGinty, Gene Dubois, the message to get to Bobby Heenan, or Bobby Heenan gave him the message to get to Dick the Bruiser in Pittsburgh, that this guy, John L. Sullivan, could be a good fit with our birthday boy today, handsome Jimmy Valiant. And it just so happened Dick the Bruiser was going to wrestle with Bruno in Pittsburgh on September the 7th of 73. And it's like, all right, let's take a look at these two. And it was like, you're coming with me to WGN for TV next week in Chicago. Thank you, Bearman. Bull Molina, he was a name.
And the rest is it. Yeah.
Angelo Savoldi. Let's see. Al Coco. Remember the name Al Coco? He used to be a regular.
Yeah.
Butcher Joe Nova. Now, Butcher Joe Nova was a big man. He was about 300 pounds. Who went on to be Butcher Brannigan on the West Coast. In fact, he even had an appearance on Starsky and Hutch. And when you see a guy like that against two normal sized people, and Hutch was like, the cuffs don't fit him. What are we going to do? And it's like, he's a monster. He's a big son of a bitch. One of my, at this run from 73, Pancho Valdez. I love Pancho Valdez. He would team with Turco a lot.
Yes, sir.
And El Gaucho. Those guys, I mean, they were like a comedy act, but they didn't come out and be stupid like Three Stooges comedy, but they were entertaining. Excuse me, Thomas Merritt.
Very, very extremely.
You know,
Thomas
Johnny Rod.
Marin, yes.
Marin, as Johnny mentioned the name, he ran a store in one of those bodegos in New York. And, you know, it's like.
And he was a legit tough guy.
A legitimate tough guy, especially coming from our amigo. If he says he's tough, then he's tough. Gypsy Frank Rodriguez.
Oh, yeah.
I love Gypsy Frank Rodriguez. He was good. And then, okay, there was in the 80s, they had Kid Sharkey. You remember that name? It was kind of wild. He was I don't know, this guy was about 150 pounds with rocks in his trunks, but, you know, Kid Sharkey, he was out there. 77, we had Dennis Johnson. He was a filler of battle royals, be at the house shows, be on television. He actually got a win against Spiros Arion. It was a DQ win when Arion had just returned in 78. It's like, what the hell? There was a guy named Bill Swift that was Bob Backlund's friend, and he got some television and house shows, but he would actually drive Backlund from the Baltimore Civic Center. Bob loved country music, and he used to go to a bar called Stabil's in Highlandtown. If you were from Baltimore, you'd call it Hollandtown. Because when my wife moved there with me, she was like, "Where's the windmills?" You said Hollandtown. I said, "I know, Victoria, but that's Baltimore E's for Highlandtown. Hollandtown. You know, they always like water. When I moved to the West Coast, people, I'd say, "Do you have any water?" And people would say, What's water? I say, you know, water. They're like, "You mean water?" I said, "Yeah, okay, water." I had to change my vernacular. Jeff Crane.
Right.
Jeff Craney, he took his lumps.
Oh, yeah.
And that guy, well, you got to give him the credit because one of the first matches, this was actually in Hamburg, when Jimmy Snuka comes flying across the ring and squashes him. I mean, it's like, I don't know if they told him he was going to do that, but it's like, we saw that at the opening of Championship Wrestling week after week. And as I told Benny before we started tonight, Lou Albano took a shot. And at the Garden on November 22nd. And when Snuka, I mean, it's tough. If you're going to leap across the ring, it's tough to be precise because Lou said he was pissing blood for 2 months after that. You know, Jimmy caught him good on the fly. Charlie Fulton. Now, I talked to Irene Simmons Fulton this week, everybody. And keep her in your prayers. She's a great lady. But she told me some stories about good old Charlie. And if you remember anything about wrestling in 82 and 83, Charlie Fulton was a big part of it. Television, house shows. He got a mini push teaming up with Swede Hansen here and there. But Charlie was a Vietnam vet and a hero in the war. And he loved wrestling. And that's why he did it. He was a good-sized guy. He was a tough guy. But this just goes to show where, you know, everybody that you see out there, they have a story. It's not just some goof that puts on a pair of trunks and a pair of boots and jumps in there. They have a story. And you have to appreciate what was done for us. Please.
Absolutely.
Have that respect. And John Callahan, who I talked to tonight, John was NYPD. Now, John's a big Massachusetts guy.
Good job.
Graduate of Walter Kowalski. Yeah, just a wonderful, wonderful guy. Hopefully we'll get him on one night. John was busy tonight or he would have joined us. He was on television. They used to bill him from Baltimore, Maryland. I remembered that. It's like, hey, that guy's from Baltimore. But, of course, you know, the true fiction world of pro wrestling. Bob Bradley.
I remember John on TV. Absolutely.
Yeah. Bob Bradley, a power lifter. And I saw him
I
the
remember
night
him.
Gary Capetta had his book released. We had a thing in somewhere in New Jersey. Larry Sharp was there, Lou Albano, but Bob Bradley showed up, and he still looked to be in damn good shape. Let me backtrack a little. 79. Mr. X was Jack Evans. He was wearing the mask. Joe Cagle, Bill Berger, and here's a name that's going to haunt some people, Mike Hall. Do you remember Mike Hall, Benny?
No, I do not. No.
That was Otto von Heller. But when he returned in 1979, I don't know. I guess the old man figured, Germany and United States have been at peace for all these years. Forget about the German gimmick. We're just not using that anymore. So he used his real name, Mike Hall, and he still had the side, but by then he grew a full head of red hair. So you couldn't remember that was Otto von Heller. But yeah, that was the same guy. And last but not least, Jack Carson. That was Bundy's brother. He was billed from Atlantic City. And if you look at the resemblance, of course, Bundy was a lot heavier than Jack, but you could see a lot of family resemblance. So yeah, Jack Carson, that was King Kong Bundy's brother. And then last but not least, to round out the show was Rick Bolton. And that was the guy that George Steele dislocated his shoulder. And the quick story behind that one, folks.
Oh, do I remember that? Oh,
yes.
That was with George Steele, right?
Yep. The first night I met George Steele, I said, George, I remember that match with Rick Bolton. He said, how the hell you know that? I said, because I'm nuts. I know all of this shit. So I said, I got a copy if you want it. Yeah, I want that. That was great. I told him, just come do a little bullshit, then I'll do that for you. And he could dislocate his arm. I said, well, my God, between Vince and Pat selling it, it was beautiful. I mean, everybody at home was just horrified. It was like, my God, he destroyed this poor guy. He tore the arm out of the socket. But of course he didn't, but we bought it. And then that just sold George Steele to go on to have what I thought was his last run. But of course it wasn't. He came back in 83, and then he went wild. And he came back against Hogan even. And then they turned him face. And it's like, I don't know how you turn George Steele face, but it worked. Like he said, he made more money with that bullshit than he ever did as the feared George the Animal Steele. And it's like, what the hell?
Unreal.
You can't argue it. It's a pro wrestling. If it works, you do it. I used to say to Nikolai, if they want us to wear a dress, are we going to do it? He'd say, you're damn right. We'll do whatever they want. I said, okay.
Yeah. As long as you pay me, right? I will tell you this as we wrap up. When I was 14, so that would have been 1969, I wrote a letter to Vince McMahon Sr. Complaining about the uneven matches on TV. Actually, Carlos Colon back in the day was an enhancement talent in the WWWF. I'm trying to think, Chuck Richards, Lenny Solomon, Lee Wong, all those guys were getting squashed every week. And I said, why don't you, pair them against each other? And of course, I knew nothing. I had no idea why they had these squash matches. And it's funny now I know, but of course he never wrote me back, but yeah, I did do that.
My grandfather, God rest his soul, used to cuss and throw things at the TV for the same reason. Why do they have those little guys with those big bastards in there? They should make it fair. I was like, well, I didn't say nothing. But real quick, I used to call the office. I have the number for Capital Wrestling in Washington, D.C., and I would get updates on the Chief. And I think it was Phil Zacco who I was talking to, and he'd entertain me. He'd say, yeah, well, we're hoping he'll be back soon. And, thanks for checking on him. And, I'll tell him he's got faithful fans out there. And they would give us like updates of what was happening. Like Patera, when he decided to do the 23 Skidoo, I called I'm like, is he injured? It's like, yeah. He's hurt. He couldn't make it. But we'll talk about that another time. We're not going to give the whole store away, just like wrestling. We make you come back next month. In this case, you come back next show to get more.
Yeah,
You demand.
absolutely. All right. Well, I want to give many thanks to everyone who joined us tonight for When It Was Real. We have a lot more great stuff on the way for you. So please hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss any episode on my new or our new entertainment network. Nikita and I will be back next week for some more old school wrestling chat. So for the great Nikita Breznikov, this is Benny Scala, the one like Playa, also the poet laureate of the Playa Entertainment Network, leaving you with this. Tonight, we spoke of Sylvano Souza. For many years, I thought he was a loser. But now that I'm older, I know the deal of those beautiful days when it was real. Good night, folks.
Sylvano Souza.